Hey everybody, hope you're having a good day and ready to get into the book of Acts as you move outside of the Gospels and get into Acts. Acts is a book that is important to study along with the Gospels, and hence its inclusion in this course for a number of reasons. One is its history. Using that term in a broad sense, you consider the Gospels as biography. Acts has been considered ancient historiography. I think there's something to calling it biblical historiography too, as scholars point out that Acts seems to understand itself as writing within the same vein as the historians of the Old Testament, and what we now refer to as the Old Testament. And so it's biblical historiography. It's continuing the story of the Gospels, introduces Paul, and really helps us to prepare for not only Paul's letters, but the rest of the letters of the New Testament as well. And so, good place to conclude as far as books of the Bible are concerned in this class. The most important thing, though, about considering Acts along with the Gospels is one particular Gospel, that being Luke. So, Acts is volume 2, and really, scholars have come to refer to Luke and Acts as Luke-Acts, as I believe I mentioned before. And considering Luke Acts is very important. So in other words, when we get to the start of Acts, if we read it just in order in our Bibles, we have Luke, then we have John, because he was probably the last gospel written, almost certainly, and then we have Acts. But really, Luke and Acts are meant to be read together. And the themes in Acts are meant to continue, or the themes in Luke rather, are meant to continue on into the book of Acts. So you'll notice that Acts begins by saying all that Jesus began to do and teach. And then you have the church that sort of continues the acts and words of Jesus. And you'll even see things like when Saul's converted, Christ asks, "Why are you persecuting me?" So you can see sort of that idea that Christ's ministry is continuing through the church. One thing that connects the books, we could spend so much time on this, but one thing that connects Luke and Acts that's important to see, and that some of you have considered already or I've pointed your attention to, is the ascension. Jesus' ascension is, of course, one of the most important parts of the gospel story. But did you consider that Luke is the only gospel that actually includes it? Yes, the ascension is crucial to the gospel story, but Luke is the only one who actually writes it. The other gospels, I think, especially as you've considered the synoptic problem, hopefully you're seeing that there's a tradition around that people would have known, and so the ascension was a known fact, but Luke is the only one to record it. Not only does Luke record it, and is he the only gospel to do it, though, he ends his gospel with the ascension, and then he begins Acts with it. In other words, this event is so important that it has to be narrated twice, and from a slightly different angle, which I think can also help us to understand the differences in the synoptic gospels too, that even the same author, Luke, using the same event, is narrating it slightly differently each time. One fits with the book of Luke, the other helps to prepare for the unfolding of the book of Acts. And so this is a very important event. Be thinking about how the ascension, Jesus ascending to the Father's right hand, helps you better understand what's going on in the book of Acts. You are transitioning out of Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels to Walter Liefeld's book. We have a typo there in the course as Liefeld. And you're specifically reading about themes, the themes of Acts, the purpose or proposed purposes of Acts, and an outline of the book. And these three items, the theological themes of any given book, the purpose of a book, why the author is writing it, and the outline, those are probably the three most important things as you consider the study of any particular book of the Bible, as far as understanding it, just seeing what it's all about, what it's really driving at, how it's structured to communicate that, why it was written, These things are very important questions, and so you're reading about these on purpose. Your first discussion post will fit with these themes as you think about the Christology of Acts. So you're considering here what Acts says about Christ. In other words, you're not thinking what does the whole Bible, the whole New Testament perhaps say about Christ, just what Acts says about it, about this topic, I should say. And thinking about the ascension, Christ at God's right hand, how that plays into the apostles' preaching, things like that will help you with that one. The second discussion, you're thinking about Jewish and Roman leadership, and this is really designed to get you at thinking toward both the Jews, so again, thinking about Acts as starting in Jerusalem and going to the ends of the earth. Okay, you're starting with the Jews, you're proceeding out to the Gentiles, and both of these groups have opposition to the message. And this can fit with purposes. So Liefeld's book on what you read as far as him dealing with the purposes of Acts might be helpful here. But really just trying to get you, more than anything, to think about Acts itself, think through the text. What is it trying to get us to think about the Jewish leadership in the book and the Roman leadership? So those discussion posts will lead you along those lines. As normal, you have 3 contextualized application options, and if you need any help or have any questions, please let me know.